Hello and welcome to my second video for Dementia Awareness Week, and I guess I should pick up where I left off yesterday. Keep watching. As I say, I'm going to try and do a video at least every day this week for Dementia Awareness Week to tell people a little bit more about the story of me and my father. So I left off with the fact that we had to move house for him and I needed to find out where his doctor was. Now I would say he did need to move house. They were kicking people out of where he lived. He needed to find somewhere else. So as difficult as it might seem, and why would you move somebody that's lived somewhere for 15 years, needs must. So I moved him across the street, and that was my number one priority just before Christmas and getting things sorted. Also, obviously, finding the doctor's letter, asking him where his doctor's is, didn't get any response from him. He has no idea. But thankfully, they sent him a letter asking for a checkup. So I did make a call and, I did see if we could get something sorted. But in the end, it didn't actually matter. And let me tell you why. So a little bit more about me is that I love motorbikes. I've always wanted to ride one. Now, my dad used to have a motorbike as well. My mother has one, my brother, even my sister, the whole family has had motorbikes. And I always thought, when you have images of what you're going to be like with your dad, I always thought he also drives, my dad drives for a living, so I always thought he's going to teach me how to drive. We can go get my first motorbike together, it's something we can talk and bond over. And I always thought that. And for quite a while, I was dropping loads of hints and seeing if he would catch them almost, oh, do you remember your motorbike? Do you remember how you used to have to wear shoes that had massive heels on because you were so small? Ha ha! Trying to get things going. But it didn't really take off, so I was like, fine, for whatever reason he's not engaged with me on this, that's fine. And I'd started taking my lessons more seriously back in January. I was up north every weekend anyway. I was seeing my dad and I was getting things sorted, and I thought, do you know what, let's just slip some motorbike lessons in there while I'm up there. Why not? So I come up January, and I've just done my CBT in the day, and I arrived from London on the Friday night, and I thought, should I go see him? And I was like, no, it'll be too late for him. I get in about 10:30, 11. I wouldn't want to wake him up. I'm sure he's fine. I'll catch him tomorrow. So I do the full day on the Saturday, and I get my mother to drop me straight off at his flat straight afterwards. And I would say I wrote a little bit about this in my blog already for today's entry. But I get to his flat, and he literally would never want the heating on. He always wears like a million coats. He doesn't want to spend a penny on himself in no sense. He's tight, basically. Moths come flying out of his wallet, bless his heart. And I come upstairs and I see that all the lights are on and the heating's on full blast. I've just been on a motorbike in the cold, so I'm like, oh, I'm loving this. But then as soon as I get in, I realise that he's not there. The lights are on, all the heating's on, and I panic a little bit. I ring his mobile phones, because he's always had two, and they start ringing. Both of them were like under the quilt, so I had to search for them, but they were in his bed. I was like, right, okay. And then I realised that his car keys and his house keys and his basically chain of keys are also there, and his shoes that he always wears, just doesn't really have any other shoes, were just there with his main coat. So now I'm like, what on earth is happening? I do the rounds and I call some people, and I find out that he was walking around town on the Friday saying that he doesn't know where he lives. It was pouring down with rain. He was soaked through, but there was no telling him, basically. He went to see one of his friends, and they sat him down, gave him a cup of tea and all this, and kind of gave him this fluorescent coat, like a worker's coat, and was like, John, stay here, it's fine, it's not a problem, come on now, we'll sort you out. And he was like, no, I'm fine, I know where I live now, it's fine, I'm gonna walk home. Bearing in mind that was about a 2-mile walk that he's walked through town, in the rain, at dark, in the dark at night. So I hear this, and I hear that this is the full day beforehand, and I panic massively. And then I ring his really good friend from the mission who I spoke about previously. He said that he'd seen him Friday daytime and he seemed completely fine, a little bit out of it, but he hadn't been to the mission for 3 days. Now, one of the things that I'm seeing people speak a lot about is not getting confused with times and dates and things as being a sign. And he just got his times and dates confused and thought that the mission was closed. And he didn't have any kind of social interaction, didn't probably have any proper food for the last 3 days or so. So, our friend Bernie went to visit him, and he seemed okay, but just a little bit distant. And my dad was just like, "No, it's fine. Don't worry. Like, I'm sorry, I haven't been. I didn't realise that it was open. Things like this," and then toddled off. So, that is completely fine. Like, that's what anybody would do. But obviously, it's now Saturday night, 6 o'clock on a Saturday night, and nobody's seen him since about 10 o'clock on a Friday night. So I ring Bernie, and Bernie's wife starts ringing around the hospitals. We go into his old house, so I'm thinking maybe he's barged his way in, and by this stage his house is a building site. So I'm walking around these old rooms, like looking in the cellar, hoping that he's just, I don't know, sitting somewhere thinking that this is his house. And then thankfully Bernie gets a call to find out that he's in hospital. He was admitted the night before, and drove me straight up there. So I mean, it's a bit of a blurry memory as to exactly what it was like. But I got there, and he just looked really sad, pathetic, and so frail, and just a shell of a man, basically. And then I spoke to the staff and found out that he was walking around town, and then he went to the YMCA. So, and apparently people in there knew him, like people around that town where he lived, like, knew who he was. He's lived on that street, which is round the corner from the YMCA for, as I said, 15 years. So people in the shelter knew him, but people from the YMCA didn't. And apparently he was showing real signs of confusion. When I said he walked out the house with no shoes on, for example, he had these like really, really smart shoes on. And obviously he had this great big yellow fluorescent coat on that he's been given, and he's in this night shelter in January and not making any sense. So they call an ambulance for him, and he comes to Arrow Park, and he'd been there in the day, but for whatever reason they couldn't get hold of anybody. So I think he was just dazed, as anybody would do when I first got there, and he had a drip in his arm. But I think me being there was almost a bit like, oh, I now need to leave, like I want to go. And he was constantly trying to leave, and it was like, no, let's stay down, let's stay where we are, let's make sure you feel better, things like this. And at this stage they weren't going to say anything to me about what the confusion could be. On the whole, they kept on referring to, if somebody has a UTI, then they might, water infection or something like that, they can act this way as well. So at which stage I'm thinking, I've been seeing some kinds of signs. But dare I say, it's almost a blessing in the fact that he was now in a hospital, and I knew that he was fine, as in like he's now in somewhere that he's safe, he's not walking around the streets completely lost. But two, also it means that we can get some kind of medical help and medical attention. Now I'm trying to think of some of the things they first said, in the sense that they did a CT scan, and they said that there was some shrinkage of his brain. Now, sciencey stuff ain't necessarily my bag, and as far as I'm aware, that is a kind of sign of Alzheimer's. So again, we're just like, well, is it not this? But they really couldn't confirm. They had to rule absolutely everything else out first before they could do that. But he was in hospital almost for a month, actually. He was in one ward for a little while. They moved him to another, and I spent that first week with him when he was in hospital, and he didn't know who people were. So his brother, so my uncle and my auntie came round, and when they left, he would ask, sorry, who were they? And they'd be like, oh, that's your brother David. It's like, oh, yeah, of course. And he didn't know. And I think he said the exact same things about his daughters, if I'm honest. When we weren't in the room, he'd be like, who was that? And whoever would explain to him. But anyway, he was in the hospital for about a month. And that's where we basically got the diagnosis that it's Alzheimer's. We knew as much. And this is where you get down to what kind of care plan he gets put on and things like this. And this is literally only the first part of the story. It just gets even harder from here, in the sense of what we had to do, and social services, and speaking to hospitals, and all of that jazz. So I'll leave this for day 2 so far, but that experience is what got him into hospital. otherwise I can only imagine the process would have been a lot longer in regards to getting hospital appointments and getting things sorted, especially when somebody's reluctant. If somebody doesn't want to go anywhere, doesn't like the doctors, and is paranoid about these things, can you imagine? But also I would say, as soon as he went to hospital, he went downhill and fast. He could manage a lot better when he was out and about still, almost faking it till he makes it style. But as soon as he was in the hospital, he'd lost all active communication with people. He'd stopped doing things because he's just in bed all day, and it just went downhill. And it was, I guess it was a sight to see. But when you're in it, you just, like, at least what I'm like is when you're in something, you just crack on. There's no time really to stop and to think about the seriousness of it. You just do what you need to do. So I, go and see him and sort him out and figure out what we're going to do with him. Bless him. So yeah, day 2, I'll stop rambling now. I'll probably tell you a little bit more about what we did after that. Bear in mind, this is only now January. We had a whole other series of events after that. But if anybody recognises any of this, or finds it interesting or wants to know more, like, please leave me a comment. I'm doing this just off the cuff because I feel like not enough people know about these things, and there's not enough like real people out there that are telling their real stories of how it happened, the nitty-gritty of it, not smoothly put together by companies for promotion. Like, this is literally just me telling you how I see it, how it is for me and my dad, and what Alzheimer's shows itself for us. So yeah, let me know what you think, and make sure you come and have a look at the channel tomorrow, and I will tell you a little bit more. Also, check out the blog. I always make sure that I post my thoughts with some pictures and nice things like that as I go, as it comes to me. So yeah, definitely check that out, and definitely just check out more in Dementia Awareness Week. It's so important. It's going to affect so many more people moving forward. Like, we need to be knowledgeable about this kind of stuff. But yeah, end of rant, end of video. So hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you tomorrow.